I'm Justin Mott, and welcome to my home in Hanoi, Vietnam. And welcome to my weekly Mailbag series where I answer your photography questions from around the globe submitted to me through Instagram, through passing me by and asking me on the street, through Facebook, and through YouTube as well. I've also added 2 new features to this episode in an effort to spice things up a little bit. So I'm going to give you a tip of the day, just a photography related tip. Could be business, could be technical, you don't know. That's why you're gonna have to stay tuned every week. And the second thing, I'm gonna give you a quick update about stuff going on in my life, photography related. Don't worry, it won't be too long, it won't be too personal, that kind of stuff. But for those of you interested in that kind of stuff, I'm gonna make a quick announcement every week, keep you guys updated on what's going on, because I do have some exciting things coming up for 2022. So let's get into it, let's answer your photography questions. As always, guys, don't forget to check out my online store at justinmott.com, where I've got presets, I've got my prints for sale, shipping globally, and I've also got my one-on-one sessions. See, I've tightened that up, I've shortened that for all of you out there that have complained about that kind of stuff. Although, now it's a little bit longer because then I talked about you. Anyway, and I've got this new little setup here I've been talking about this the last couple episodes. Just want to hear what you guys think about it. That would be nice. I've got my little softbox there now, so I'm using the light. Got my little Mott smart desk, my laptop here. I can stand up, I can move around. That was a gift to me. I've been using it, I've been liking it. So a little new studio setup, new lighting, new setup. Don't worry, I'm not gonna have those little accented lights. I won't, once I do that, guys, I become like everyone else. So if I start getting those little accented color lights in here, you can tune me out. Let's get into it today, guys. So let's start with these 2 new segments I talked about. Let's talk about the tip of the day. My tip of the day, or tip of the week, or tip of the episode is to give thanks to your team. If you're a photographer out there, whether you're a commercial photographer working with a gigantic team of assistants, producers, lighting assistants, all that kind of stuff, or even if you're an individual working with one assistant, or you're a photojournalist working on assignment and you're working with a fixer, or even if you're an individual or amateur that vents to your partner all the time about photography and shares your excitement, shares your ups and downs and all that. Anyway, whatever it is, take a moment, give the people around you some thanks, give them some appreciation. Yes, of course, all the responsibility is on you if the shoot goes well or if it goes wrong, all that responsibility is on you, but you can't do it without your team, and you will always get all the gratitude. People always come to you, and again, it takes a lot. It takes a whole team to make things work, and the more expensive the shoot, the bigger the team. So just take a moment, give thanks to your team, give a hug to them, give some appreciation to them. Again, you get all the love from the client, you get all the recognition afterwards, so give them some recognition, take some time, show your appreciation, show your gratitude. That is my tip of the day. And now on the news part about me and what's going on in my life, again, don't worry, this won't be long-winded. I'm not gonna go too personal, although maybe I will go personal sometimes. You guys let me know. If you have personal questions, maybe sometimes I'll answer those as well, depending on my mood. But some exciting news coming up in the next few weeks. I'm scheduled to go to Kenya, go back to visit the northern white rhinos. I've been there twice already to take pictures, to do a photo story about the last 2 northern white rhinos left in the world as part of my long-term personal project, Kindred Guardians, where I document people around the world who dedicate their lives to helping animals and to wildlife conservation. And I'm going back this time. I'll take some photos, of course, but this time I will be going back to film a documentary. I'm not gonna go into the specifics, but I will be trying something brand new after all this time being locked up. I will be producing daily content. I will be vlogging daily. You can see that on YouTube. You can see it on Instagram. Follow me on Instagram. I'm going in 2 weeks from now, and I'm gonna put out as much content. I'm gonna take you guys with me on this trip. If you're interested in photography, if you're interested in wildlife conservation, if you're interested in Leica, I'll be taking some Leica gear with me. Nothing new, nothing that hasn't been released yet, but this is some Leica gear that I haven't used that I'm gonna test out, so I will be talking about that in the field. I will be producing daily content. I'm going with just myself and my wife. She'll be filming a lot of behind the scenes stuff. More on that later. I don't want to give away the specifics about the project, but I will be there. I will be doing daily content. So follow me on Instagram, follow me on YouTube if you're interested in that sort of thing. Now let's get to your questions about photography. The first question comes from Jay Hendrick, and the question is, if going overseas, do you recommend going solo or with a guide? That's a great question, Jay Hendrick. Maybe your name's James, maybe it's Justin, maybe it's I don't know. I don't know what your first name is. I just know it starts with a J, so we can bond on that. It really kind of depends on the type of person that you are. As an independent photojournalist, early on in my career, I would always go alone. I didn't typically work with a guide. Now, if I was going to a country where it was going to be hard with the language barrier, or hard to get access to something that was quite difficult to get into, I would typically work with a fixer. So if I was doing a travel story and I just needed to hit these tourist locations, or I just needed some general shots of an area, I didn't necessarily need to work with a fixer or a translator. Now, if I was doing a deeper story where I was trying to get access to something, like for example, I remember going to Bangladesh and needed to get access to these garment factories. It was quite difficult. It was even dangerous at some points. Then I needed to work with a fixer. So it really kind of depends on the type of work you do. But just in general, I like to work alone as a photographer, just because I want to just be worrying about the story, worrying about what's best for me to get the best images, what's best for me to get the most compelling, most interesting story. And I don't want to have to worry about other people. I don't want to have to worry about, oh, if I want to sit on light for an hour, or if, maybe I got access in these, doing a story about fishermen and they said, oh, you can come on the boat and spend the night. I don't want to worry, is the other person going to be okay with that? Do I have to check with this person, kind of stuff? No, I want to be able to go where the story takes me. I want to be open to that. So typically I like to work alone for that reason. Now, for example, on my upcoming trip, my wife will be coming with me, but that's quite different. She works with me. She'll be doing behind the scenes stuff. She also knows how I am. She knows my tendencies and she can tolerate that. So it really depends on your situation, where you're going and what you're trying to produce. But in general, as a photographer, when I'm doing documentary work, I like to be alone because I like the freedom that comes with working alone. The next question comes from Eric Selstrom, and he says, how about the M11? Referring to the Leica M11. Well, Eric, I already did a full review, or my type of review. You can check that out here, where I talk about the new features that interest me, whether or not I would use it, and if I would use it, how would I use it? And I've also got a video that I just released as well, where I show you some samples of images that I've taken with the Leica M11, some DNG files, some toned raw files. It's not a very techy review, but if you're interested in seeing what some pictures look like from that camera, you can check that out as well right here. Overall, I think it's a fantastic camera. The aesthetic upgrades are subtle, but that's a good thing. There's nothing really to mess with on that M body. It's a beautiful camera. They've made that adjustment to the base plate, which I really like. That new battery system, talk about that extensively in the other video. That brand new sensor is like, that's probably the wow factor. It's a fantastic camera. Would I buy it? Probably not. For me, no, it just doesn't make sense. And not because of the price, not because it's a bad camera, not because I don't like the feature updates. It's just because I use the Leica M10D. It's a different sort of experience because it doesn't have a screen on it. And I don't think I really need that 60 megapixels for most of my work. So no, I probably wouldn't buy it, but again, it's not the camera's fault, it's not you, it's me sort of thing. If I was just starting out, just starting with the Leica ecosystem, and I wanted one camera that could kind of do everything, the versatility of that sensor, that you can use the full capabilities of that sensor and have that small, medium, and large file, I really like that. So yeah, if I was just starting out with Leica and I wanted one camera that could do it all and I didn't need autofocus, that would be it, because that camera, commercial work, if you're shooting in an editorial way, or street photography or documentary work, it can really do it all. Now, for me, just personally, I am considering a different camera. I'm actually considering going into the SL system because I'm doing more video, and also I'm strongly considering the Leica SL2 for my commercial work instead of the Hasselblad. I'm going to do a whole different review on that. I'm taking the SL camera. I'm hopefully taking the SL camera to Kenya with me, so I'll be able to test that out a little bit more, and I'll have some thoughts on that afterwards. So thank you for the question. Overall, the M11 is a fantastic camera. Again, just not for me right now at this point in my life, but you can check out that review if you want to know more. You can check out that review right here. Moving on, the next question comes from B Fields, and the question is, what was your first camera? Well, my first camera that I started using, not really professionally, but more for fun, more for leisure, was a film Canon Rebel camera with a kit lens at the time. So that was the first camera that I really started using. I really started getting into photography. Then after that, when I started doing more professional work, but still was shooting a little bit of film, but not developing my own film, I was using the Leica M6. That's where I kind of first learned about Leica. That's where I first fell in love with Leica. Took a huge break in my career from them, using Canon and Nikon in between, and then went all the way back to Leica. Here I am. So it was like a long break. I had to get to know what else was out there. Play the field a little bit. Sow my oats, if you will. And then settle down with Leica. And now we're in love, we're married, we're in for the long run. So the Canon Rebel was my first film camera. The Leica M6 was probably my first professional film camera, or that I used professionally. And my first digital camera was a Canon digital Elf, I think it was called. Like one of the first digital cameras out there. It was a gift from my family. I was living in San Francisco. They saw that I was interested in photography. They all chipped in. It was very, very sweet. It's a very meaningful gesture to me. They all chipped in and bought me that camera, and that was probably what really accelerated my learning curve in photography, was having that digital camera. Again, there wasn't like many digital cameras out there. I think it was a 2-megapixel camera, but it was fantastic to be able to take those files, to look at the files, to see it in real time. It was very meaningful, again, for my family to all chip in and get me that. I was living in San Francisco. It was a fun time in my life. It was like my early or mid-20s. Had a lot of fun wandering around that city with that camera and really, really enjoyed it. So that's my first digital camera. First film camera was the Canon Rebel. The next question, also from B Fields, was a two-parter, so I just made it into 2 questions. His question was, when did you start taking pictures? Well, around that time, so it sort of relates to that. Around that time in San Francisco, in my early 20s, I'm 43 years old. In my early 20s, I was bartending full-time, Monday through Friday. I was going to school full-time, Monday through Friday in the evenings. And on the weekends, I just wanted to like get out, wanted to unwind, I wanted to explore the city, and photography was a great way to do that. So that's when I really started getting into it. Then I went to school for journalism. And while I was taking my classes in journalism, I had to take a photojournalism class. Well, first I had to take a photo class, and I immediately fell in love with that. Put the pen down, picked up the camera. I got to get outside the classroom. I got to explore the city. I got to be creative. I got to explore my curiosities about the city and different stories, and I immediately fell in love, and I immediately knew right then, even taking just photo 1, I'm going to make this into a career. I don't care how it happens, but that's how I really get started in photography, probably my mid-20s, and more serious, more professional in my late 20s. And then I never graduated college as well. I left about a year before I was set to graduate because I started getting work for the New York Times, living out here in Vietnam, and I just didn't want to go back, didn't want to start over, and I was where I wanted to be right then, so never finished school. But for those of you out there that are gonna finish school, do it. I would suggest it, but for me, it just wasn't the right way for me to go. And the last question comes from another Eric, but a different Eric, but both Eric with a K, not Eric with a C. I typically know more people with a C, but I like the K. And this is Eric Leipold. Leipold, I'm sure I'm not pronouncing that right. Leypoldt. His question is, do you think Leica will make a Q with a 35mm lens? It's a great question, Eric, and I'm not sure. I see a lot of people talk about this. Whenever I talk about the Leica Q, whenever I answer questions about the Leica Q, that's what people want to know. They say, oh, I would love it if it had a 35 instead of a 28. But I do think for the masses, the 28 does appeal more to people, because for the masses, just wider is better. I don't agree with that. I prefer a 35. I'm a 35mm person all the way. The Leica Q, Leica Q2 would be a lot more appealing to me if it was a fixed 35, because I just like shooting that way. 28, nothing wrong with that, it's just a little bit too wide for me. But I think for the masses, and I think the Q is their camera that's really meant for the masses. I think it's probably their best seller. And so, yeah, maybe not, I don't know. I would like to see it, but I think they know the 35 people tend to be more like M people. And the 28 people that want a little bit wider, a bigger audience, they tend to be more Q people. So I think it makes sense for their pricing, for the structuring, for the way that they position the different camera models. Yeah, ideally I'd love it, but my thoughts are, if I had to bet on it, I would say maybe like a special edition 35, but I'd say if they're just gonna do one, they'll probably stick with the 28, because I just think it appeals to the most amount of people, and like a Q appeals to the most amount of people, so it only makes sense. So thank you guys all for your questions this week. Happy New Year for all of you guys out there that celebrate Lunar New Year. Happy New Year from Vietnam. Don't forget to follow me on my upcoming adventures. If you have any questions about anything you heard today, if you have a question that you want me to feature in my mailbag series, ask away in the comment section. I will do my best to answer it there or here or both. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, and don't forget to have a wonderful day.